Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. So this is almost gonna feel like a bit more of a dating video, right? Which is not really my wheelhouse, but let's give it a shot. How many of you have been raised on the idea, and this may be more targeted at women, I hate to be so gendered, but like of thinking of wanting to be chased, wanting to be pursued. Let's talk about the dangers of that in light of what we know about narcissism. Now we're at the point in history where now books I talk about that I read when I was a young woman, young people have never heard of, but some of you, sort of an iconic book. Many years ago, a book came out sort of called The Rules as they related to dating. And I found it to be rather regressive, but some of the guidance basically was guiding people. And I think it was particularly focused on women to play a little hard to get, make the other person work for it. Don't call back too fast, wait a beat. And I have to tell you, a lot of the stuff that was in that book still percolates through dating advice today. Now, in this video, I do not want to shame anyone, right? I mean, at the end of the day, who doesn't want to be chased, right? It's sort of a classical sense of this idea that someone is so besotted with you and lots of flirty texts and attention and thoughtfully well-planned dates. It feels good. But I think at this point, with all we know about narcissism, let's face it, it's tricky. If we dig deeper, there's also a want, a desire, and I do feel it, again, it could be a bit of a throwback, but of wanting to be pursued, of wanting to be wanted, desired, cherished, and that a person puts the intent, work, effort in to let you know that. Of another person finding the time, making the time, going the extra mile or many extra miles to show you how interested they are. If we want to get Nature Channel documentary about this, the birds and the animals figured out this long ago with displays of feathers and bloated throats and big manes and getting into horn ramming fights with other competitors. They work for it, right? So I'm starting to watch a pattern emerge from the fog as I watch human relationships. And it's something that it was amazing it took me this long, but I'm not always that quick. I've only been noticing it more and more in the last 6 months as I hear people's stories, which is the danger that comes when somebody really pursues you and of wanting to be pursued. So let's break this down. And some of you already know where I'm going with this, and good for you, but bear with me because I really want to make this point. We're going to start superficially with this, right? Guess who is better at pursuing than anybody else out there? Yeah, it's the narcissistic folks, the love bombing, the grand gestures, but an almost obsessive focus they have when they want to win at something. They are masterful at the texting and the thinking about you, babe stuff. They're so good at the dating details and the early pursuit. They've got a phenomenally good sort of forward-facing. The Rules didn't have a chapter about narcissists. It's a shame it didn't, because this is where narcissistic folks shine and actually provide the fodder for a lifetime of regret. People look back at those early days and say, damn, they gave me little gifts every day for a month when it was my birthday. They got us the best table at that restaurant. They sent me texts all day telling me how sexy I am. How did it all go so wrong? How did I read this all so wrong? You didn't read it wrong. But when it starts like that, too often these things do tend to go wrong. So if being pursued matters to you, or you've been sold a message that it matters, and you believe that a person has to do all this exertion and show their love, then all this texting, restaurant reservations, sexy time, thoughtfulness, and generosity, it is going to mess you up. And you forget or may not know that in some ways it is setting you up for a trap, and a far greater probability that this hyper attentive, romantic, laser focused person may be narcissistic. Now, listen folks, obviously this is not always the case, and some of you may win the romance lottery that results in a highly attentive and really nice partner. You folks aren't watching this channel. All of you who are, I'm telling you now, it tends not to go in a good direction. Now, narcissistic folks tend to be sort of what we call bimodal. Either they are really, really all in, or they're really inattentive. which may leave you obsessing about, ooh, do I text? Is it too soon? Will I seem needy? Why aren't they getting back to me? I gotta have game. That loop, right? Rarely do they hit their stride well, mostly because they aren't thinking of you. That's why they're not getting back to you. They're just doing what works for them. But let's now drill deeper into this bedrock, because not always, but often, some of this can have family roots. You may find that not being seen, heard, valued, or if you were valued, only conditionally valued, that the correction of being really seen, valued, heard, and the validation that comes from someone putting such intentional effort into you can be more seductive than anything you ever imagined. Again, the ultimate correction. There can also be a conviction. People may believe that they are being self-valuing when they say, hey, I'm worth it. So if someone wants me, they'll put in the effort. So even healthy confidence can blow back in your face with narcissistic folks, because sadly, effort can look like charm, charisma, and love bombing, and may also mean that you could miss out on the healthy person who may have better boundaries and may not be so obsessively in your facey. Now, dating is tough. The idea that anyone ever gets the rhythms right initially in a relationship is a miracle, because we all bring our histories and our vulnerabilities. So that means that for someone who hasn't been seen at key developmental phases, or has been acculturated on this idea that pursuit and attention and obsession is better, or heaven forbid both, then someone who comes at you with a full court love-bombed press may be really attractive, and can also mean that someone who sort of flips and flops back and forth may be attractive, because then there's someone to win over, right? And it can also mean that someone who is attentive-ish but not obsessive can feel hollow, because they may not feel interested enough. But that desire for desire, to be desired, and to have someone come in big for you, when it does happen to you, keep your eyes open and your radar up, because it can really be a setup for obsessive, almost too perfect attention that invariably will blow up. The thing to remember is that the narcissistic love bomber expects return on investment. And that can mean that they expect that you will be all in, or at least as all in as they want, early in the game. And that may mean them encroaching on your time, rushing sex, rushing commitment, or keeping things at a pace that works for them. Things like, hey, I'm still in touch with my ex because we're still figuring stuff out. If you hear that, your response could be, good luck with that, and slowly eye the exits. Don't get lost in their transactional universe, and pay attention to the rules and the fairy tales and the corrections you are engaged in. Too many folks have been sold the obsessive rule book on dating. Instead, focus on responsive, no games, authentic, vulnerable when appropriate, respectful, and straightforward. It may not be as exciting, but I promise you in the long term it'll pay off. But more important than the payoff is that it may also help you steer clear of narcissistic folks. I've had enough, I've been witnessing enough people in my life date, whether it's clients, friends, people who were married for a long time and then divorced and putting themselves back out there, whatever it is. And I can see that it is almost kryptonite when people come in with that heavy front game, because what it does is it lifts uncertainty, right? Somebody's like, baby, thinking about you all the time, can't stop thinking about you, you're my person, and let's go here, let's go there. It definitely takes away uncertainty. You're very clear that this person is interested in you. Like I said, for people who have that developmental backstory, narcissistic or disengaged parents, getting that uncertainty or feeling like that uncertainty is lifted because it really feels like this person is into you, takes away that ambiguity, takes away that self-doubt. So maybe one of the hard things to accept is that the front end of dating is ambiguous, and that maybe the greatest lesson we can get, even if the dating never takes off into anything more, is that we learn to be with the shades of gray instead of wanting that absolute obsessive sense of pursuit that I have seen more often than not has gotten people into trouble. Hope that's helpful, a little bit cynical, and thanks again.